Hello, everybody. I hope everyone is doing well today on this Thursday. I don't know about you, but the week is flying by. Can't believe it. Also, double hello to some of the faces that Joan and I were able to see yesterday at the FCCN in-person meeting. All right, and how are we doing on numbers, Sable? Are we good to go, or should we give folks a couple minutes?
We have 20 people in the room right now. Looks like we have most people, so I think we're good to go.
Okay, great. We'll get started. All right, well, welcome everybody for our July peer learning community for the Regional Childcare Coalitions. This is actually our last virtual PLC of the year, which seems wild. As a reminder, we'll have the in-person Wage Initiative PLC in August, and then we'll have the Child Care Champions event plus the half day of Wage TA in September. And so those will serve as our PLCs for that month. So this is the last time we'll be convening in this format for this fiscal year. And looking ahead at what we have on the agenda today, we've got a couple items. So we're going to be focusing quite a bit today on enhancing our strategies from programmatic to systems change, and then also getting into thinking about some prep for the fiscal year 27 project plan. We're going to be previewing our draft template for the fiscal year 27 project plan, as well as sharing some items related to that. And so we'll begin with our welcome and connection activity. We're going to be sharing just a couple of highlights from our July progress meeting so far. We're not quite done with them. We have two more left, but some learnings of what we've seen so far and what we're hearing from you guys. Um, Erin is going to take over with systems change superheroes, we're calling it, but really beefing up programmatic strategies to systems change strategies, and she has some excellent information to share with you all. We will, of course, have peer-to-peer time. We're slotted for about 30 minutes of breakout plus whole group sharing. Then, like I promised, we'll get into the fiscal year 27 preview of project planning. I'll share some tentative dates with everybody, just knowing right now that we're still awaiting budgets, scope of work, and all of those official items from MyLeap. So everything we share today is tentative, the information as we know it right now, but we're waiting to set that in stone, of course. And then we'll close with just a couple resources and our end of session poll. For our working agreements, you all know we like to begin these meetings with a couple working agreements. They're here on the screen. If everyone wouldn't mind dropping in their chat what of these agreements you're holding with you today. For me, as I share some information that's important to all of us, I'm going to strive to be clear, concise, and direct, and also am actively listening to understand from everybody. All right, and I see some of those flowing into the chat. Excellent. To kick us off, break the ice a little bit, we typically do a content heavy or programmatic heavy check-in question, but we wanted to lighten it up a little bit this time. We've had some great conversations informally with all of you, but wanted to open it into this space. So what's one small summer moment that you have enjoyed recently? And if anyone is willing to hop off mute and share, or if you feel comfortable, put it in the chat, please feel free to share with the peers. I'm going to share my small moment is at lunch before this meeting. I got a cucumber and a tomato from my garden, and it felt so, I don't know, successful to grow something and then eat it. All right. It looks like a lot of time spent with family in the chat. Outdoor activities. This is so Michigan, hanging out on the water, kayaking. Ah, World Cup watching. Yes, Norica. I think that's taken over everybody's lives recently. Oh, great. These are all Pure Michigan responses. We should share them with the MEDC and the Pure Michigan team. Awesome. Well, I'll move us along and feel free to keep posting and engaging with each other in the chat on this topic. So next up, we wanted to share just a couple highlights of what we've heard so far in July progress meetings. So we noted a couple themes so far, with the first being shifting from structural foundations of the coalition to action in the work groups. We've heard a lot of excellent activity going on in the work groups and setting up the work groups as really driving the movement within the coalitions themselves and also the way that they're structured to convene and collaborate together. We've also learned relatedly about developing feedback loops with the content and learnings from the work groups to the rest of the coalition. So for some examples, this has been like setting up your broader coalition meetings with time for each work group to share out about what they're doing, or setting up different types of meetings within your coalition structure, whether it's a core team with representatives from each work group, or just different ways to be able to facilitate that knowledge sharing throughout the coalition. We've also heard a lot about figuring out how to guide work group efforts, setting them up for success, and also ensuring alignment with your childcare action plan. Sometimes there's great ideas that are happening in the work groups, and you have to kind of rein that in and check yourself and say, is this aligned with what we've set out to do, or does our plan actually need updating to reflect current needs in the community? You'll note there's a couple themes here. So we're seeing distributing and sharing leadership, adaptive cycles, aligning with the action plan, and also advancing systems change efforts and sustainability. All of these are key elements in the project plan. And we hope this project plan that we're going to be sharing at towards the end of the call will help you clearly think through these strategies in a way that's something you're already doing by implementing all of these things, but kind of breaks it out in a way that's easy to understand, act, and then review. And as we promised, we will have some peer time later on today, and that peer time is going to focus on distributing and sharing leadership, and then also advancing systems change efforts and sustainability. But before we get into that peer time, I'm going to pass it over to Erin, who's going to get into systems change.
All right. Ta-da. Let me know if you see my screen.
Yep, you're
Awesome.
good.
All right. So I'm gonna be looking kind of back and forth to make sure I can see your faces too. So I'm gonna dive in a little bit on this green area of advancing systems change efforts. That's kind of like my passion and wheelhouse, and really something that we've been focusing on in the evaluation, and I know the TA team has as well. So I'm just going to give you some ideas and almost a step-by-step process you can use when you're thinking about doing your project plan in the coming months to make sure that the efforts that you're working on are really using systems approaches and kind of evolving some programmatic ideas into systems change. And the reason why this is so important, I think, is summed up in Karen Pittman's quote here. She says programmatic interventions or strategies help people beat the odds. Systemic interventions seek to change the odds. I don't know about you, but I get like goosebumps every time I see that quote because it's just so like spot on. So let's kind of pull apart, what do we mean by programmatic and systemic interventions? So I'm going to use a case example around goal 4 because I know a lot of coalitions are working on this. So goal 4 is all about using business support strategies to build the capacity of childcare businesses. And so, this is important because it's helping to ultimately achieve our impact of creating more childcare supply. So one common programmatic strategy approach related to this goal could be something like a networking event, that helps connect providers to business development supports in the region. I see similar approaches to this used all over the country. It's very common, kind of like an event to get people together and to connect them. So that strategy is designed to build childcare capacity of the people who physically attend the event. So I'm curious, as you reflect on this strategy, what are some of the limitations of only using that programmatic approach to ultimately try to build capacity and childcare supply? Use the chat just to reflect. What are some limitations of just using that programmatic approach? Yeah, all the folks who can't be in the room. Sampling bias, very nice. It doesn't help the people who don't attend. And as we know, there's often lots of barriers that prevent people from physically attending an event. Totally, transportation, lots of different barriers that you could imagine. And so even good programmatic strategies have limitations, like they take ongoing effort and resources. So if you want more people to benefit, you got to hold more events. They end if the coalition goes away. There's no other entity positioned to keep it going because it's something the coalition is doing. And like you said in the chat, it only benefits participating people or settings one by one. And so we know all the providers in the region can't attend event, given schedules, lack of awareness, access barriers, transportation. Plus, there's going to be new providers who move into the community after the event happens. And so there's lots of programmatic approaches out there. There's things that I've seen where people will help one childcare business overcome zoning issues or licensing issues kind of one by one. That's important, but it's limited to that one by one touch point, right? Holding a training event, similar to the example we just talked about with a networking event. Getting funding for one childcare business to open. That's important for that childcare business, but it's not really reaching the whole region. Now note, programmatic approaches can be useful to get things started and build momentum, especially when there's nothing happening. But at the end of the day, like we're saying in the chat, they're just not sufficient to create lasting region-wide change. Despite all of those limitations, here's a really, I think, important reflection moment for the field. Despite these limitations, why do you think programmatic strategies are still such a common approach? Pop that in the chat. They feel good, Sarah. You got it. Yep, it's easy to get outputs from the number of people attending an event or being trained. Yep, business as usual. They help squeaky wheels. Honestly, a lot of times we're used to being funded for programmatic approaches. And so the whole infrastructure is kind of developed around that. Totally. So if that's some of the characteristics of even good programmatic strategies, what are the characteristics of systems change strategies? So in comparison, systems change strategies are self-sustaining. Think of it like a perennial flower. I'm a huge gardener. Perennial flowers are great. You just plant them and you tend them over time. They self-sustain themselves. Systems change strategies, regardless of whether the coalition exists, will continue because they're embedded into the fabric of the region. And they're often designed to benefit all relevant current and future people and settings that are relevant to the strategy.
Erin, I see Joan has a question here.
Yeah.
Oh, not anymore? She's done? Okay.
Okay. I love those accidental hand raising. Okay, so this feels like it sounded pretty good, right? We want this type of change, but how do you do it? It can be a little overwhelming. And so I'm going to bring you through 4 steps that are drawn from that strategy design tool Jane and I described during the Adaptive Action webinar series. So you can go back to that, and there's a lot more details in there. But I think it's helpful just to kind of boil this down into a step-by-step. I know I find that helpful. So I'm going to take you through 4 steps and use the same case example to kind of walk us through. So step 1 is all about, at the core of your strategy design, targeting system outcomes related to your initiative goals and the action plan. So specifically, these system outcomes should align with the priorities that y'all identified in that 2024 action plan, because that action plan identified the most important system issues affecting childcare supply in your region. So it needs to be aligned with, like, what are you actually seeing are the biggest issues in your region. Now, note, all of you have learned a lot over the past few years. And in some cases, your action plans need to be updated because you've learned a lot. That's normal, that's okay. The bottom line is that you should have a shared understanding of the most pressing system issues affecting childcare supply, and then target your system outcomes related to those issues. Kind of like flip the issues into the positive. What would it look like to, if this was improved? That's your system outcome. And so if you're aiming your arrow at the right target, lots of other things in the strategy design process are going to automatically start to fall into line. So let's look at this for the example of goal 4. What's a system outcome for this goal? Here's an example about embedding sustainable processes and structures to connect childcare business owners to business development supports in the region. So it's like built in. So for example, this could look like getting multiple organizations and agencies that have natural touch points with childcare business owners to embed new internal processes and structures so their staff start to consistently refer all the childcare businesses they naturally interact with on a daily basis to those business development supports. You're like baking it in, rewiring those organizations and agencies to start doing that referral consistently. So again, like, this outcome represents an actual change in the way the region operates. Think of it again like rewiring the region so that it continues to operate in a different way. Because of that system nature of that outcome, it has a greater likelihood of actually creating more region-wide, lasting childcare capacity for current and future childcare business owners who are in the region. So even just the outcome itself positions us to have a far greater kind of impact, ultimately going towards that long-term impact of more childcare supply. So where can you find system outcomes like this? If you remember last year, we looked through all the coalition action plans and your project plan strategies for each goal area and developed a list of relevant system outcomes. And I've used those outcomes a lot in the tools and the documents that I've provided to you, including in last year's evaluation support. But I get it, there's a lot of information and it's really easy to lose track of that stuff. So to make it super easy, we actually embedded these outcomes, this kind of menu of outcomes, into the project plan template for this year. So it's super easy to identify what are some relevant outcomes for goal areas that your strategies can be really focused on. And again, these outcome areas are related to the strategies you all are using, so they should fit very well. Liv is going to talk a little bit about that in more detail a little bit later. Okay, so step number 2, after you got your system outcome targeted, building on that action plan, it's important to learn about some of the local regional context, the root causes, the bright spots, by talking with multiple perspectives. People have a good perspective on what's going on, including childcare providers, parents, relevant sectors. And this is important so that your strategies are actually responsive to your local context. Now remember, I had mentioned before that programmatic strategies can help you launch systems change strategies. I kind of think of programmatic strategies like a pilot. And one of the ways they can help you launch systems change strategies is by gathering those multiple perspectives about the local context. So here's our case example again. Let's say you had that programmatic strategy, that networking event, and you talked with a lot of people. Some of the things you might have learned from that event are things like, there's really few people making referrals. It's not prioritized. It's just not something that happens very often in the community outside of an event like this. That's like a root cause. Maybe you learn about a bright spot where when providers have detailed, categorized, updated information about what's available, it's really easy for them to navigate to the business supports they need. And then finally, maybe you learn, gosh, these business development support entities are really not coordinated. There's a need for them to get more on the same page and aligned. So this is super important information to take into account when you're designing strategies. So your strategies are actually targeting those things in order to build that outcome. Now, no, you don't have to do a training event or a networking event or a programmatic strategy to learn these types of things. We heard in several of the coalition work groups that they're gathering a lot of this information just through their work. But if you have a programmatic strategy, you might as well use it to get some information. Okay, so step 3. Let's review. You've got your system outcome, you're aiming your arrow at the right target, you've learned about your local context from multiple perspectives. Now you can take all of that and design enduring strategies that shift things like goals, roles, policies, operations, and networks. So those are like great terms, but people are often like, what does that look like? So I'm going to give you some examples that I took actually from you all. Each coalition, I picked at least one example. So I'm going to give you some concrete examples of what this looks like so that it really makes sense. So let's start with goals. So in Region 3, the Northeast Michigan Council of Governments, NEMCOG, embedded a focus on childcare into their own efforts. And as a result, they assisted now 59 municipalities. Sarah just updated me, 59 municipalities to help shift their zoning codes to better support childcare supply building. And in many cases, they actually help those communities embed childcare goals into their master planning so that from here on out, any new zoning policies that are developed will automatically align with those childcare goals and keep everything supportive of supply building. Brilliant! That is brilliant. In Region 8, one member of their funders collaborative, foundation member of their funders collaborative, added childcare as a new funding goal, a new funding priority. And so automatically now some of their RFPs are starting to align with that. Goals is a really powerful leverage point because it helps to align everything else that goes on around those goals. All right, roles. Several coalitions are helping parents take on new leadership roles, both within the coalition and within regional organizations to bring that parent influence and voice greater into those efforts. Policies, Region 8 did some education on childcare supply building with their Branch County Chamber of Commerce. And in response, the Chamber of Commerce formally changed their community awards criteria so that it now includes childcare. And in fact, they've actually now started to formally recognize childcare businesses as a business entity. That's a huge change. They're really excited about that change. We interviewed them. Region 2 is supporting Grand Traverse County in a millage campaign to create sustainable funding mechanisms for childcare. Region 8 is doing the same thing in Kalamazoo. Right, operations in Region 5, LEAP redesigned some of its service offerings to now provide, and they've been doing this for a while, but they provide business development supports that are tailored to the needs of childcare businesses. That's an operational change. Region 1 is working with state licensing to try to change some of their internal processes so they can start referring childcare providers that they work with to local supports. And Region 4 supported Kent County Head Start and GSRP to integrate their funding models differently so it creates more slots. All of those are great operation changes. Last one, networks. Region 6 and 9 are working to develop a network of EDOs, economic development organizations, to increase their coordination and help inform regional systems change efforts. And Region 10 is creating a network of major healthcare providers and systems in their region to work together on childcare supply building issues. Super exciting stuff, right? So this is already happening a lot. There's great examples from your peers. So let's go back to our example. Here's a question a coalition or a work group could discuss to design system strategies for that system outcome. So they might ask a question like, how might our region shift goals, roles, policies, operations, and/or networks to address our local context and try to achieve this system outcome? Now remember, they would bring in all the learnings they've had to make sure that approach is going to meet the local context. So here's what they might have come up with. Maybe they're going to embed new goals within certain organizations, roles, operations, and policies and protocols into places like Great Start to Quality Resource Centers, GSRP contractors like ISDs who are contracting with local community-based organizations, higher education programs that are training childcare, the next generation of childcare providers and business owners, and banks that might be encountering providers getting loans. So again, setting goals so they're focused on childcare, shifting roles so their staff now see themselves as referral sources, having some operations, they've got protocols, they've got other support so that they can actually accomplish those new referral roles, and creating any policy alignment that might need to happen. In addition, they might also build a network of local business development support organizations so they can stay aligned and make sure that any information about their offering stays updated. Again, that's responding to what they learned about the local context. One other way that this community might utilize that programmatic approach pilot is leveraging all the great relationships they built with business development support entities through that event and leverage that to build that network and some of these other strategies. So it can all kind of evolve and work together towards that system focus. Okay, last one. At the end of the day, once these strategies are designed, you got to have a checkpoint, like a pause point, to make sure that they're designed to reach all relevant current and future people and settings. It's so easy to forget about the constraints certain groups of people or settings have that prevent them from benefiting. And so you can think them through and design your strategies to overcome those barriers in the beginning. Again, it's really important to talk with multiple perspectives, especially childcare providers and parents, to identify those gaps. So in this case, the coalition, let's say, was talking about their strategy. And one childcare provider said, yeah, but what about family childcare providers? They might not be interacting always with some of these entities. How do we make sure it's benefiting them? And so the group would add FCCNs, family childcare networks, to ensure that they had a touch point, a referral touch point with more home-based family care settings. Okay, here they are. That was quick, but you can go back and review this if you want. And here's like a little cheat sheet to help you kind of keep track of some of these things. And again, it's all listed in more detail in that persimmon colored design tool that I mentioned later. So I'm gonna throw it back to Liv, and she's gonna help you talk a little bit with each other about some of these ideas and then bring it into the template so you see how all this comes together in the project plan you'll be developing.
Awesome. Thanks, Erin. All that good information. I know we're all swimming in and thinking about how we can apply it to our own work and our own examples. So the first thing that we're going to do for our peer-to-peer learning time, we're going to follow a model called Think, Pair, Share. So I'm going to put some prompts on the screen here, and we're going to think about them for about 2 minutes, just as your own individual, and maybe writing down some notes as you think through them. We're going to then pair into groups of 2. So Sable's going to randomly assign us all pairs, and then we're going to talk through the prompt questions together, and then we'll have a round of sharing out. And so our prompts for this exercise to think about are: think of a strategy your coalition is engaged in. 1, is it a program or a systems change strategy? How have you or how might you overcome the challenge of having a good programmatic solution, but turning it then into a systems change strategy, like Erin just walked us through? And then what did you do or might you do to target system outcomes learn about root causes, design, so goals, policy, operations, and networks endure beyond just the implementation of a one-time thing, or ensure strategies will benefit current and future people. We'll also drop these in the chat so you have them once we go into our pairs, but we'll give you all a minute or so to think through this on your own before we then break off. All right, Sable, are we good to go with breakout groups?
We are. I'll open them now.
Great. All right, it looks like we're back to our full house here in the main room. We hope that discussion was fruitful and that you were able to learn from each other and really use a tangible strategy that your coalition is working on to think through some of these systems enhancements and sustainability enhancements that Erin just walked through. Um, we have a couple minutes here. We'd love to bring it back to this main group. If anyone is willing to hop off mute and share, we have time for a couple people to share to the broader group your thinking and discussion within your pair.
Liv, I, I'm going to go just for a minute because I think what was great, Gloria and I were together, and the networking was really great, right? Because she's got a project that could potentially be looking for some funding, and I had some ideas on funding as to where she could look, right? And we have a project that we're trying to get off the ground. And she was able to talk about, hey, have you done any surveys? Have you done some market research? That kind of stuff. So I appreciated that opportunity to hear from a different point of view, a different region, a different lens. So I was super excited to hear.
Yeah. Ditto, Deb. We didn't have long enough time, but it was great.
Oh, that's great. I love that feedback and awesome to be able to troubleshoot together and think through different ideas. Anyone else?
Liv, I'll share. Elizabeth and I were talking about something that we are piloting here in Calhoun County, which is using our relationships with employers through a connection with Michigan Works to bring pre-K for all registration on site at employers' spaces. And so we're doing that here in August. And so while that feels a little programmatic, what do we do to integrate this into an employer's schedule annually, that they host an event in the summer, that they're looking at this more as something they're going to drive, and it's some pretty low-hanging fruit, right? And so they're sharing information. They've got teleprompters all over it's a manufacturer. They've got teleprompters all over the building, so they're going to display the posters. And so yeah, there's lots of opportunity to make it more systemic. We're just at the beginning of that, but that's the one we discussed.
That's a great example, and I love that the sustainability conversations are already entering the chat before it is even happening. That's wonderful to hear. Great. Unless there's anyone else who would like to share, I'll move us along here. So thank you for everybody for taking the time to network with your peers and share back out to this broader group. So thinking about how these types of questions will show up in the project plan, we have this broad question, which is typical. You'll probably recognize a similar question that was asked in your project plans this year, but What systems change strategies will your coalition work on in the fiscal year to advance your regional childcare action plan? And which system outcome does the strategy advance? That one's new this year, thinking down to the outcome level like Erin previewed earlier. And so this aligns well with the conversation we've been having and conversations that I'm sure you're having in your coalitions. But so the questions that will follow up this question about your strategies in the template itself are activities and staging. So what are the activities that will be completed to accomplish this strategy and when, which is kind of an enhancement from the existing project plan, which talks about timeline. Impact, describing how the strategy will reach and benefit the prioritized geographic locations and settings identified in your regional childcare action plan. So really strongly making sure that we have that alignment, and that also filters into your strategies and the strategies that the work groups are working on. And then lastly, sustainability. So describing how the strategy will lead to sustainable systems change in your region. And it sounds like your conversations that you had are already doing this, and this is already something that's in conversation. But we hope that the way the template itself is set up will be very natural in thinking through these components of each strategy. All right. So we have two peer times today. The second one we have now will follow the same model, and we're going to be thinking pairing and sharing again. So this time we're going to be focusing our questions on distributing and sharing leadership instead of advancing systems change. So this is really goals 1 through 3 in your scope of work, and thinking about the structure of the coalitions themselves. And so for our think here, which will again give you 1 to 2 minutes to think about on your own, think of how your coalition work groups are functioning. What are ways you've been successful in the coalition structure and convening this fiscal year, so in fiscal year 26? And thinking about that success, what's something related to sharing and distributing leadership that you're hoping to advance in fiscal year 27? And so we'll give you a minute here to do that again, and then we're going to be pairing with the same pair that you had in the first round to talk through these questions together, and then we'll come back and do a similar share out. All right, hopefully you've had a little bit at least to begin thinking through these questions. Sable, if you wouldn't mind sending everyone back to their pairs, you'll have 10 minutes again to talk through these items with your pair, and then we'll reconvene. There we go. There's the flood. All right, welcome back, everyone. Hopefully that conversation was as productive as the first. Um, Once again, we would love if someone is feeling brave and willing to unmute and share a little bit about your conversation or any aha moments you had while discussing with your partner.
Well, we talked a little bit about for leadership for next year, identifying those roles and responsibilities. And the work groups in Region 5, we have 3 work groups, and we have co-leads, so there's 2 people leading those work groups instead of just one person. And it's working a lot better. They have different talents. And if one person's good at the business side, somebody else is good at something else. And so it's working. And if one person can't do something, they lean on the other person. And then just trying to get those co-leads in the work group meetings and in the full coalitions to take more responsibility and lead it. And like we'll do the slides and everything else, we'll do the background work, but it's your group, your region. You guys take it over and we're here for support, is really a goal for 27 for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like really building in that ownership and shared leadership within the work group itself. And Elizabeth, I see your hand is raised.
We were maybe an interesting group because we're from the same region. Kathy and I, so we really got to dig into what we were thinking about. But um, the ownership of each of our, because we don't have working groups, we have county implementation leads. And so our ownership is so built in, but we talked about really needing to focusing on creating the conditions. That's probably the way we guide people best to system change versus just programs is how do we create the conditions? So I think that's a question we'll highlight as we move next year.
Yeah, great. I see Gloria in the chat says we need a state map of where each of us lives. I love that idea. Sometimes we don't know that we're so close to some other folks. And I'm wondering, Erin, if since you have the networking data, we could do a sub map of the leads and co-leads, just a food for thought. My brain works in maps too. Anyone else? I think we have time for one other share if anyone's feeling inclined. Nick?
Yeah, we Sarah and I talked about lowering barriers for members of the coalition. So like, how easy can I make it for you to care? What do I need to do to make it so that way you feel the need that can write an email? Like, can you, my next step for someone after sharing from our full coalition meeting is to ask them to write the working group, the like newsletter kind of recap for that group. Like, you don't have to, it's fine if you copy and paste it. It's fine if you have the robot write it for you. I just don't want to do it. So can you take that over for me this month? Can someone else take it over for me next month? And then just kind of building in on that. So that way it's like, I'm not the only one never working. I get paid. Yes, I get paid to do this. Uh, I'm always thinking about coalition stuff. So how can we get people to think about it outside of our monthly meetings?
I love that example and really reinforcing the idea that it isn't like 0 to 100. It can be incremental bits of ownership and responsibility that's transferred over time and dispersed throughout your groups or your county teams or your committees. I love that example. Thanks, Nick. All right. Thank you, everybody. Moving us along. And once again, just relating a little bit of what we've talked about here to how these topics will show up in the project plan, which I promise we're getting to next. So some key elements, distributing and sharing leadership. This really relates to goals 1 through 3, the convening and collaboration goals of the coalition. So the project plan will ask you to identify what collaboration strategies will your coalition work on in fiscal year 27? And then which goal 1 through 3 is this related to? We'll note also that a strategy may be related to multiple goals. Same for the others that we talked about before. It may relate to multiple goals and also systems outcomes. And you'll see that you'll be able to select multiple in the template that we're about to hop into. So some actual questions that will be supportive within the template itself, thinking about these strategies. Again, what is the time frame when this strategy will be worked on and when is the anticipated completion? There also is a note in there about these collaborative strategies. Is this an ongoing strategy? Is this something that you're continuously working on and refining? Capacity, do you feel you have the internal or contracted FTE and staffing necessary to implement these strategies? And then also, if not, how are you working to build this capacity as lead of the coalition? And then also what ECIC provided TA resources would be helpful for this strategy. So this might be trainings or PLCs or one-on-one supports or resources to support a specific strategy. So moving along, we've alluded to this quite a bit, and Erin showed a screenshot of one of these pages within her section, and I'm going to dive into the instrument itself because I know it's kind of hard to see on the slide. but just very high level structurally, we've broken the project plan itself into 3 tabs. And this is in a spreadsheet form, but don't panic. There are no crazy formulas or calculations to be made. It's really just a table that we felt was easiest to be able to put into a spreadsheet so that you're able to have some of these functionalities of multiple checkboxes or drop-down menus and things like that. So you'll find on tab 1, there is an instructions tab and also some resources linked that we've mentioned throughout the call today. We'll also link a recording of this PLC as well. And so if you want to revisit any items that we talked about today, that will live within the project plan itself. Tab 2 are going to cover those collaborative and convening strategies, goals 1 through 3. And tab 3 is going to cover goals 4 through 9. So I'm going to pop over, bear with me, I'm going to switch my screen share and we're going to go into the document itself. All right, just about there. Okay. Can you all see my screen now? And I'll zoom in a little bit. I see a thumbs up. So as promised, we have a couple tabs within the spreadsheet. Like I mentioned, tab 1 is instructions, tab 2 is for goals 1 through 3 strategies, and tab 3 is goals 4 through 9 strategies. We also have an additional tab here we'll get to. It's just an additional resource to help think through that tab 3. This instruction page looks very similar to how the project plan intro page is now. It just asks you for your Regional Child Care Coalition name, the date of the project plan, and some introductory text. We'll then scroll down and you'll see some helpful steps to completing your project plan, which one brings us back to assessing your region's child care supply building goals, reviewing your child care action plan, and analyzing your current regional data, which we've been walking through during our progress meetings in that report that Erin shared, and some guiding questions as well. Step 2 is working through tab 2, so outlining your strategies for initiative goals 1 through 3. And then step 3 is outlining your strategies for initiatives goal 4 through 5 on tab 3. And then we have linked resources here, which I mentioned, including that persimmon sheet, we're calling it here, which we'll also share as a separate document, but the one that Erin talked through, we have slides for collaborative capacities, again, to easily access and revisit. And then we'll include the recording of this PLC in here as well. All right, so I'm going to hop into tab 2, which are those goals 1 through 3 areas, your collaborative and convening strategies. To complete this table, you see column A here asks that question: what new or ongoing collaboration strategies will your coalition use in fiscal year 27? So you'll be able to just click in and type your strategy within this column. You'll then be able to select which goal areas 1 through 3 the strategy advances. You might select one, or you might say, hey, I think this is really addressing more than one goal area, and you'll be able to select as many as you'd like. This tab also asks those questions that we highlighted after our share out. So time frame, when will the strategy be worked on? Capacity, do you feel like you have the capacity to currently do the strategy, or what's the plan to build that capacity? And then also what TA resources would be useful. I'm going to pause here on this tab. Does anyone have any questions about the way this table is set up or any instructions for completing it? I'll also note just briefly here, we don't have the final budget and scope of work from MyLeap yet, so items within this project plan may change if we get any new directives from the state. All right. I'm not hearing any questions, but we'll give you another chance here in a minute if you think of something. So once you've completed your strategy entries for goals 1 through 3, you'll simply navigate over to tab 3, which is a table for entering strategies related to goals 4 through 9. Again, you'll see that core question here. So what systems change strategies will your coalition work on in fiscal year 2027? And then you'll enter that text in this column. We have the goals 4 through 9 listed horizontally across this top bar. You'll then select which goal or goals could be more than one the strategy is addressing, and then also the system outcomes that the strategy is addressing. So these drop-down menus include all of those systems outcomes that Erin described earlier on. And you can go in here and say, I think strategy 1 is addressing goals, let's say 5 and 6. And I think this is addressing system outcomes. Let's select a couple. We'll say those 3. So you can select as many or as little as you feel are relevant. And then there's a couple prompt questions over here. So again, that activities and staging question, the impact, so describing how the strategy will reach the benefit prioritized geographic locations. So this is really connecting back to the needs identified in your child care action plan. This is a new one for this year as well. The action, what coalition, work group, committee, or partners are advancing this strategy? And so hopefully this will help also craft your work plans for your work groups for fiscal year 27 by already having it articulated of who is driving each strategy. And then again, what ECICTA resources would be useful to help support this strategy. Are there any questions on this tab itself? And I'll also point to this 4th tab here, this additional resource lists all of these goals and outcomes in one place if it's easier for you to think through, okay, what are the systems outcomes associated with goal 4, 5, and so on. And then also the evaluation data that is currently being used to think through how we track progress made on these outcomes. Any questions here? Awesome. I'm not seeing any.
Liv, check out Emily's great question in the chat.
Right to all the systems outcomes. My initial thought is no. I think the expectation is that all the goal areas are being covered, but the systems outcome may vary. And please correct me if you have a different interpretation of that, anybody, but the way it currently is in thinking through where strategies lie within each region is that they don't cover every system outcome. There are some that do, and others that don't, as your priorities naturally center on different areas within the goals.
I think one thing I noticed, just like being very honest, is the project plans from this year had a lot of strategies, like lots of strategies. And I think in most cases, coalitions didn't get to all the strategies. And so I think a more strategic way to use this template, in my perspective, is to really hone in on the strategies you think are the most necessary and that you're really like well positioned to do. Identify what goals and outcomes are related to those. But I don't think, Emily, this is like trying to get a high score on like a slot machine. It's more like trying to be super strategic and make sure we all know where we're headed with these strategies, because it will help align the TA, it will help align the evaluation, and it will really help all of you kind of have a shared framework. So that's just from sort of best practice with strategic planning. I would say it's like the goal is not to like cover the board with everything. It's to be thoughtful and strategic and just be very clear about what the goals are trying to accomplish or what the strategies are trying to accomplish.
Shanae, I see you have your hand up.
No, I just wanted to kind of weigh in on that because I mean, I agree that I think where we are now, given that we're what, 3 years in or so, is that because we got that report from Aaron that gave us a sense of what we actually were going to actually measure. Right now, we can tighten up strategies toward that end. I think the trick of it is because this is a collaborative shared leadership model is that you have to have room to bring on board and have them weigh in on and lead from these work groups. And so we're a little bit late in this. We have already kind of scheduled that we're going to have a planning session for our parent group in September so that they could weigh into this so that we're doing what they want to do. But now we have clarity that we can bring to the groups about what outcomes we're actually trying to move, because that's what's really new here. And our staff and data were like, oh, okay, now we can, so we'll try to find the highest leverage things that are, and I mean, by us, I mean, the work groups need to find the highest leverage things to get to these end goals.
Thank you, Shanae. I do want to weigh in a little bit. Hi, everybody. I had a headache today, so I didn't want to facilitate the meeting. So my colleagues have done such an amazing job, but it's great to be with everybody. I think, Shanae, one of the things that I want everybody to pick up too is this really deep connection back to the Regional Childcare Action Plan. And like, if work groups are identifying different needs that are in the plan, different types of systems changes, different root causes, like that means your plan needs to be updated. And so I think we're really trying to make sure that we keep alignment because MyLeap is funding this work based on those plans. And so we need those plans to be up to date, and that's why this alignment is really so important. I know you understand that, Shanae, and I think that's important for everyone to be thinking about. We hear stories sometimes in progress meetings where people almost are getting approached like they're a bank, a lead and co-lead. People are coming saying, here's a need, how can you fill it? Here's a need, can you give me money for it? Here's a need, how do you help me? And I think what we're trying to do is also help you be able to be strategic and say, we are focused on systems change. We are changing goals, roles, policies, etc. Here's our plan. Here's how our work groups are aligned. Like, we understand this is a need. Let's bring it to the work group. Let's figure out what to do about it. But you all are not banks for people to come to and ask money. That is not the purpose of the regional coalitions.
Great, thank you for those comments. Any other questions before we move on? And we'll link this in the emails if you want to poke around in the post PLC email, noting that there may be some changes depending on what we get from the state, but you might have some time to get used to the functionality here. And I will switch back to the slide deck. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Oh, it's yeah, there you go.
Good? Okay, good to go. Just a couple more things before we close today as it relates to preparing for fiscal year 2027. So we have this tentative template for the project plan itself, but also just want to share with you all a little bit of information from our compliance team as we begin to think about the planning timeline, with the big asterisk that all of this is tentative based on when fiscal year 27 budgets are received from MyLeap. So these are the dates as we're planning for them right now, and we'll certainly keep you up to date if any of this changes. But right now, renewal applications will open in Flux on August 31st. And ECIC will issue award letters with the fiscal 27 project budget as soon as those amounts are known. The budget, the project plan, and templates will all be made available for everyone in Flux for you to download and work on with your coalitions. In September, there's some time to draft and submit. So renewal materials right now, we're targeting submitting by September 18th to ensure our team has adequate review time. And so you'll upload the budget narrative, and project plans back into Flux for our team to review, provide feedback, and then some time for back and forth to revise if there's any feedback on strategies or any questions or things like that. And then subawards will be issued as soon as possible after October 1st, noting that we can't issue subawards until the budgets and project plans are individually approved. We'll do our best for a timely review, but your prompt submission and addressing of feedback will help support that as well. Any questions right now? This will all be firmed up once we receive those budgets, but this is the as we know it plan. All right.
We got a question in
Just
the
a
chat.
note in the chat.
Oh, perfect. You can go ahead, Shanae.
No, it's a question in the chat, and I definitely would like to know
From
the same
Emma.
thing.
I'm happy to answer the question. We don't yet know your funding amount for fiscal year 27. As you know, in fiscal year 25, you had $100,000. We were able to take advantage in fiscal year 26 of some unspent CCDF dollars that we were able to advocate for and bring additional funding to all of you. We certainly continued to communicate every time we're with MyLeap how important it is for regional coalitions to have sufficient resources. We have not seen budget figures yet. We do understand that the quality line that was in the state budget, which is what this work is funded out at, was exactly the same as fiscal year 26. So, but we don't know what that will mean yet. As soon as we know more, we will keep you all apprised. You are on our speed dial. We know how important it is to know what your budget amount is to submit your project plan. We understand that those need to sync up for you.
All right, thank you. Just a couple notes on budgeting as we're thinking ahead to fiscal year 2027, and noting we don't have those figures, but just some procedural items related to county team oversight and really all sub-vendor oversight. And family leader compensation, as we know many of you are working on firming up those systems within your organizations. So for county team oversight, as coalition structures evolve, so do oversight requirements of subrecipients. So any coalitions allocating CCDF funds to county level implementation teams or any sub-vendors must do a couple items within their budgets and their project plans to make sure we have the proper level of insight of what these funds are being used for. This includes sufficiently detailed strategies in your project plan. So knowing exactly what county teams are prioritizing or other vendors are prioritizing, articulating county specific fund usage in your budget narrative and budget cost lines, making sure that we have that clear insight into what everyone's doing. And then also the responsibility of ensuring that all parties are aware of the appropriate use and restrictions around CCDF funding, making sure that flow of information is getting to everyone involved. As far as family leader compensation, the National Center for Family and Parent Leadership is working on some additional documentation and resources to support the regional child care coalitions with budgeting and practices regarding family compensation. We know this is a topic that you've talked about as peers and also in past PLCs. And so hearing that need, this is something that they're working on and will also be included in the toolkit that they're producing as well for the regional coalitions. And then lastly, so our TA team is thinking through our structure for fiscal year 2027 as well. We, of course, need to get this proposed approach that we have here approved by MyLeap, but we're in the development phase of ideas right now and would love to hear feedback from you Right now, we're thinking about balancing peer-to-peer and expert and exemplar. We're calling it learning communities on an alternating monthly basis. So you'd have the value of peer time and then also learning from experts, continuing to offer on-demand TA resources and offerings, and then also one-on-one consultations. So like I mentioned, we're kind of etching out what this might look like for fiscal year 27, and of course need to make sure this meets your needs and then also meets MyLeap's expectations for the TA provided as well. But we would appreciate any input on what you feel went well in 2026 and also what you think we could do differently in 2027 as we're crafting this plan. And the feedback survey at the end of this PLC will include a question about that. So if you want to provide feedback in that way, we would love to receive it. And then lastly, I just want to open it up again to questions before we close, just to make sure we captured everything, and then we'll just run through a couple items.
Maria's got a question in the chat about an easy to digest and understand resource that details appropriate use and restrictions around CCDF funding.
I'll take that question. Thanks for the question, Maria. We will definitely bring that ask to our compliance office. I think one thing just to say to everyone is there's never going to be a list of everything that is allowable and not allowable produced because some of it is context specific. So, for example, if you provide if you're holding an all-day meeting, then it is allowable to serve meals to people as a part of the meeting and supporting them to be there. Whereas in some cases, it wouldn't be allowable to provide meals with CCDF dollars. But I think we can help you at least also understand and help your finance departments because they are the folks who also need to be making sure that the charges that you are making against CCDF are also allowable and however you are overseeing that within your own organizations as well. This is really important. I know you're all aware of the federal interest in childcare and some of the messaging that has been out related to childcare, and we all have to be guardians of these dollars for our state and our children and our childcare. So everybody in this initiative has a responsibility to help make sure that every dollar that is spent of CCDF is allowable.
Yes, thank you very much, Joan. Any other questions? Housekeeping request. Oh, interesting. We'll look into that, Ken. We'll check into that. We're internally going through some Zoom updates and new laptops, so we'll make sure our settings are up to spec moving forward. All right, so just a couple items before we close. I know you're probably sick of getting reminders from me to register for the Wage Initiative in-person meeting next month in August in Lansing. The registration deadline is tomorrow, end of day, so please make sure to get anyone from your coalition who hasn't registered yet to fill out that registration form and make sure you get any lodging if needed before Sunday is when the cutoff for that group rate is. We so far have really great numbers registered, and I sent a list to everyone this morning with who from your coalitions is registered. And so let me know if there's any questions on that front. As always, on-demand TA is available. Please send requests to our technical assistance email. Jane is going to be out traveling a bit in August, but then our office hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays with her will resume. And then please reach out to schedule specific one-on-one time if those hours don't work for you. And then also please complete the post PLC survey. We have a couple questions in there about feedback on the project plan itself, and then also on how TA might look differently in fiscal year 2027, and we very much appreciate any of your thoughtful feedback. All right, and unless there's anything else, we will wish you a great rest of your afternoon, and woohoo, we finished on time. Thanks, everybody, and have a good rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.